So we're reading Cleopatra by Kristiana Gregory. It's Cleopatra, Princess of the Nile. It's a royal diaries. This is part 4, and we're starting on page 32 if you're reading along. On the 16th of January in the morning. I'm writing this early. The sun will rise in moments. After last night's sleep, I feel rested. Now that I've had time to think, some hope is unfolding inside me. Not long ago, perhaps 2 years past, Father bought a friendship with Rome. He borrowed 6,000 talents of silver from our government to pay Julius Caesar and Pompey so that Rome and Egypt would be allies. Pompey, who's a vigorous soldier, is also called the bearded executioner. In 3 months, he rid the Mediterranean of pirates, 846 ships of pirates. These pirates had been plundering vessels on trade routes. This fearless Pompey also captured Jerusalem a few years ago, leaving Roman soldiers in charge. He's not a man I want for an enemy. Thus, when I suddenly remembered that Pompey is my patron, he was kind of like Cleopatra's godfather, that he was paid to protect the royal children, I felt enormous relief. Since we are friends, because of the money we paid, maybe the soldiers will be satisfied just camping on our shores until the trouble calms down. Remember, they're going to come and kind of scare the Egyptian people into liking their pharaoh again. We'll see if that works. Father now owes 16,000 talents, right? Because he just added another 10,000 to that. Okay, if it takes years, about 3 years, for an Egyptian laborer to earn 1 talent, it's going to take many laborers, many years to pay off Father's debt. So it's the Egyptian people who are paying that money back to the Pharaoh to pay the Romans to come scare the Egyptians. Just tracking all of this. What does a poor man gain from my father's toil? Now I understand why common, hardworking people hate my father so deeply. My heart despairs over this. As I write this, Arrow has curled herself at my chair with one heavy paw resting on my foot. Her long spotted tail is tucked under her chin like a cushion. What a good old friend. Tomorrow I'm going to ask the royal jeweler to make a new collar for her, a beautiful one, perhaps gold with purple stones. The sand in my hourglass is almost at the bottom. My oil lamp is low. To bed now. The 17th of January. I've turned my thoughts to what Olympus said the other day. I believe him, for he's wise beyond his years. He studies with learned men at the museum, and he's also friends with commoners such as cooks and chariot drivers. He listens to what people say. This is a quality that will make him a good physician, but in the meantime, it makes him my valuable friend. Since I wanted to see and hear for myself what our subjects are saying about Father, I planned a visit to the Agora. With Neva's help, I washed all color from my face and replaced my gold necklace with a seashell pendant. She combed my hair in the style of the Greek girls, and we dressed in simple chittens, no perfume or earrings. We wore thin wool shawls as a northern wind had returned, making the day cold. Early in the morning, we hurried on our errands to buy bread and little cakes, Puso melting into the crowds behind us. This outing was just an excuse because the truth is I have plenty of bread. The royal bakers deliver fresh loaves to me twice daily. As usual, the streets were crowded with pushing and shoving and shouting people, a babble of languages. Some odors were so unpleasant, I drew a veil over my nose and mouth. This is one reason Berenice will not appear in public. She doesn't understand foreigners, particularly those who don't bathe as often as the Greeks do. Her delicate stomach makes her afraid of new foods, though she's more likely to die of poisoning in her own walls. Myself, I do love the smell of roasted meat, and I love the clamor of crowds. Thus, Neva and I slowly made our way through the streets. We were pressed in on all sides, and many times I was pinched by unseen hands, rudely pinched, but such is the risk of pretending to be a common girl and not allowing Puso to stay by my side. But if I brought my royal guards, then everyone would know I'm from the palace. And with murderers looking for my father, all the more I needed to conceal my identity. I turned down an alley that was so narrow my shoulders brushed the walls as I sidestepped puddles and piles of dung. Neva followed me, her hand hooked in my sash so we wouldn't lose each other. We passed a doorway where a man sat on his heels. Behind him was a little store. The back wall was dark except for a small oil lamp that illuminated shelves of idols for sale, all sizes carved from stone and wood. The length of the alley was dotted with stalls like this, their owners crouched in doorways, leering at us as we hurried past, reaching out a dirty hand. We ran into a bright, busy street and once again blended into the crowd. I could see an Arab in his flowing dishdasha, a braided cord around his forehead, watching me, dear Puso. Once again, I felt safe. When I noticed people swarming around something, I bent down to look between all the elbows and arms, and I saw a square cage full of baby crocodiles, each about a length of my arm. They were writhing and snapping their jaws. I doubt they'd been fed for days. Children were poking sticks and reeds into the cage, apparently not realizing their fingers could get bitten off. The owner of the crocodiles was a tiny black man, a pygmy. He stood on top of the cage, shouting terrible curses on my father, shouting that his crocodiles were for sale cheap to anyone willing to sneak them into the king's bed. The crowd roared with pleasure, but by no means understanding that such an act would get them beheaded. My heart was so troubled at this. I pulled Neva's arm and we hurried away down toward the wharves. Near the eastern harbor, there's a spit of land with rocks that form a breakwater. Nearby is the temple of Isis, our Egyptian goddess. We climbed the steps and entered the palace of worship. It's a large open room with a wide view of the sea. Always there's a breeze. In the heat of summer, this breeze is refreshing, but now during winter, it's just cold. I lay a small ball of incense that I'd carried in my pouch at the stone feet of Isis. An attendant stepped away from the shadows, carrying a lantern, which he used to light my offering. The steps surrounding Isis were lined with candles floating in bowls of oil. They flickered as a slave lifted a fan of ostrich feathers and began waving it over me. Oh, Isis, I prayed, protect my father, protect me. I sense there's more danger than I can see. To continue. Even I left the temple to walk along the cold beach, Puso far behind. A crowd had gathered in the sand. Entertaining them was a Siloi, one of the many African snake charmers who roam the streets of Alexandria. I watched the cobra rise out of its basket, its hood flared as it swayed. People were tossing coins into a dish and applauding, pleased by the snake's dance. Do they not know that cobras are deaf to flute music? They only flare up because they're angry and ready to spit their killing poison. I've witnessed men be struck dead while showing off. Nearby, two boys stood knee-deep in the waves, pulling in a fishing net. They started to sing. It was a wicked song that made my blood chill. Wicked because it was about King Ptolemy and his daughter, Cleopatra. Me! I felt myself begin to tremble as the song grew louder. Part of it went like this. A poison cup, a serpent's bite, a sword to the neck would be just right. Wanted to hear no more, I pushed my way through the crowd, back along the canopic way to the palace, Neva following. We slipped in by one of the servants' gates. Before changing out of my clothes, I took a tablet and rubbed the wax until it was smooth enough to write upon. When I finished, I lay a blank tablet face to face and tied them together with string, then lit a purple candle. Dripping the wax on the string, I pressed my ring into the wax for my personal seal. Take this to Olympus, I instructed Neva. He'd been right. Father's life was in danger, but so was mine. The 19th of January. Arrow is wearing her new collar. When she paces through the halls at night, I can see torchlight reflecting off the tiny amethysts, my favorite purple stones. They are set in gold with black etchings. Hieroglyphs spell her name and mine. Olympus and I have been sending tablets to each other twice a day. I have written him that the songs in the streets put fear in my heart. So this morning we met in the gymnasium to watch the wrestlers and talk about these things. We sat in the stands near the athletes where their chatter could drown out our voices. Oh, his friendship is a comfort. I've been reflecting on something that gladdens my heart. With Olympus sitting next to me, I forget that I am royal and he's common. Maybe it's the bold way he speaks his mind to me, often leaning over to touch my arm until I nod with understanding. Then, when I'm the one speaking, he listens carefully to every word, looking at me with such tenderness, I end up pouring out my heart to him. Olympus will be a great physician. I know it. Though he's young like myself, I trust him deeply. But he's worried about my safety. He's heard ugly rumors about me, and this morning he saw something disturbing at the stables. The riding master showed Olympus a square piece of papyrus that had been nailed to Bucephalus's stall. On it was painted drawings showing the Ptolemy children. The 3 youngest were sleeping peacefully in their cradles. The 2 eldest, Tryphena and Berenice, were gazing at their reflections in a mirror. But the 3rd daughter, me, was missing her head. When Olympus brought the papyrus to me, my heart fell. I didn't know exactly what it means or who wants me killed. It is common knowledge that I'm father's favorite daughter. So perhaps the people who hate him hate me as well, because I am the one most likely to succeed him. In any event, it's now too dangerous for me to ride Bucephalus. That's her horse, right? Even out in the desert, enemies know my favorite oasis, where we always rest before returning to the city. My heart is uneasy knowing that I'm being watched. Thus, Olympus has started making plans, but what they are, he won't say, not until everything's in place. All right, I'm going to try to get one more done in our time frame here. I'll go fast. The 22nd of January. Last night before the moon rose, Neva and I made our way down to the palace steps that lead to the water's edge. Puso waited on a small boat. In the darkness, he rowed us out to my island, Anauratus. I wanted to be alone, that is, without my servants and guards, who are usually at my call, without them. As we neared the island's beach, Puso jumped into the water to pull the boat ashore. I lifted my chitin so it would not get wet and stepped over the rail to the sand. The usual torches lit the entryway to the palace, but I wanted to walk for a while along the dark shoreline. But after some moments, Puso ran to me and hurried us back to the boat. He carried something white and round under his arm. I didn't understand why we had to leave Anauratus so quickly, but I trusted Puso. When he launched us back into the waves and started rowing, the object he had set on the floor at his feet rolled toward me. It was a human skull. Even in the dim light, I could see a name, my name, painted across the forehead. I'm sick at heart about this. Another message that somebody wants me dead, but who? Letter. Princess Cleopatra to Olympus, loyal friend and observer. Mercy to you and peace. Your last letter so frightened me, I rubbed out the words so you wouldn't be suspected. Yes, I'll be ready. Do not tell a soul, not even little Arsinoe or my brothers. Tell their nurses that they can make up a story if they wonder where I've gone. By the time Tryphena and Berenice figure it out, I'll be safe. I will leave Arrow in your care, my friend. Please see she's well fed, otherwise she gets extremely rough. If cook runs out of lamb, there are plenty of rats in the granary, plump and sweet to her taste. She enjoys an ostrich egg from time to time. Also Bucephalus. She'll need exercise and your tender touch. Do not try to comb her mane. Thank you in advance, dear Olympus. I know we'll be seeing each other between now and my departure, but might not be able to speak aloud of our plans. Thus, these instructions for my beloved pets. I'm happy that Neva will be my companion on the journey, but my heart would take delight if you two could be by my side, Olympus. So we don't know where she's going or what her plan is, but it sounds like she's leaving. All right, that's the end of this. And so we're finishing off on page 43. Bye.